Next thing I need to do is move this trailer full of hay up by the cows because they are totally out. So in order to move the hay, we need the truck. And the truck happens to be connected to the livestock trailer at the moment. So we're going to have to drop the trailer and hook up the hay. Okay, so I moved the hay over and I disconnected it from the truck. And what I like to do is put a couple pallets in the bottom, and I actually have the steel tailgate for the trailer that I like to set it on just to give it a firm foundation, because I don't really trust this little jack here to hold that much weight long term. And let me take the straps off and then I'll show you how I start my first bale. Okay, so I took the straps off, and when I open up these bales and start feeding, they basically have 6 of these really tight strings. It's basically baling twine, really thick, and the bale is super compressed on these bales. They weigh about 1,400 pounds. I've seen bales the same size weigh about 1,100. So they're compressing another 300 pounds in there. They're really tight. So what I like to do is have one string that I can work from here. So the first thing I do is cut that string. And that's the string I'm going to use to keep the whole bale together. And then I'll cut another string, maybe another one down, just to have an extra string. And I'll use that string to make the one I just cut a little bit longer. Okay, so here's the string that I made a little bit longer by using the other string and just tying a couple knots. And I keep it pretty loose because once you start cutting these other strings, the whole bale will expand. And I believe that's all the strings, yeah. So now you have, oh, there's the top string. This one here. So, you see how much it expands? So now this string that was loose is tight. And from here, I basically pull the strings back as much as I can. Make sure they're all cut. And then I have more control over the bale. Some of these you can pull, some of them you can't. So my hay guy, he actually pushes up the back bale against the front and puts the load as far forward as possible, and it really stabilizes the load. So from here, when I'm first starting out, basically what I'll do is I'll get up on top here if I can. And I'll measure out usually about that much per day. For now, we're just going to do a couple leaves here, maybe just these first 3. So I untie that, kind of put my belly against the whole bale, and then move the string up into the slot here, tie it over there, and then after that I work on this. So this is kind of hard without a tripod, but you can see this actually moves back, and then you can take these 2 strings, reach over and tie them off over here. So there's a couple things you need when you're starting out these bales. One is a cart to catch the hay as it falls, and another one, I use this big huge crowbar. And basically what I do, these are in here so tight, usually I can't get them out, so I kind of, I can't do it with one hand with the camera, but I basically jam it right under the bale like this, and then I wedge it out and the hay comes right out. And then once you get the first couple leaves out with the crowbar, then you don't need it again until you do this side over here, and it's just the front part of the front bale on this side. So I have to round up these ducks again. These guys are crazy. They sure like to come out. I think they like me chasing them in too. They're pretty funny. So I finished with the hay there, And you may have heard it, there's a characteristic of hay called palatability. And palatability, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, not many people use that term, but it basically means the degree to which the cows like to eat it. So for this particular hay, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's pretty easy with my cows. You just put 10 cows around the feeder, fill it with hay, and if 10 cows come up and eat, the palatability is 10. Oh, look at those guys. There they go again. Crazy ducks. But I only have 8 cows now, but I know I used to have 12 here, and palatability is really good on this hay. And I've actually had some hay where I'll put it in the feeder and the cows won't even touch it. Palatability is 0. So another thing about these big bales, you're probably wondering why I have these small bales here. So what I do is, as soon as I use up the first big bale, I'll take the second one and I'll move it forward. Basically, I'll take my winch and attach it to the bale, and I'll pull it all the way, pretty much all the way up. And then I'll take these bales and I'll put it behind that one, because I found if I didn't put the small bales behind it, they're packed so tight they actually expand from the front and the back, and you lose a lot of hay, you know, from the back instead of from the front. So it's hard to manage if you don't have something supporting it from the back. Then one thing you always want to do with your hay is to make sure you always cover it, and make sure your tarp doesn't have a whole lot of holes in it. Mine has a little bit, but I go through the hay so fast it doesn't really matter. And I like to weight it down with these old tires with the rims on them, because it's really hard to, it's almost impossible to rip the tarp with the tires. And we get a lot of really strong wind whipping through here, so it's a pretty good system. Even better yet, store it in your barn. As long as you store it dry, hay can last for years and years. But you get it wet and it will get moldy and be ruined real quick.